Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, it's part 2 of your NBA draft primer from a Phoenix Suns standpoint. Catch part 1, the number 10 overall pick. Here, all things number 29. The final prospects we need to talk about are top players at that spot and trade options as well. Next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back in to Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Draft Day Wednesday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. We're going to break down the final bit of homework we did on 2 prospects at number 29, as well as our top 3 players that we'd like to see the Suns get at that spot and some trade options to close. Joining me for all of it, as always, in this part 2 from the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling? Ben Garcia.
What's up, man? I'm doing well. It's almost like I just saw you 5 seconds ago. But I think we did a good job with the first one. I think people can tell we did our homework. So let's see if we can bring it home for the 29th overall pick.
Let's do it. We're going to start with the 2 players as we did in part 1. And we'll start with the guy that I think you've been pretty intrigued by for a little while. We keep pushing him off because, okay, they did a workout with Ryan Kalkbrenner and this and that. Mm-hmm. But Noah Penda, the French forward, 6'7", going to be 21 next season. And this past year was his first at the top level of French basketball, where he put up 10, 6, and 3, 32% from deep. I think the shot is obviously going to be one of the big question marks for him, but he has, I would say, rounded out game for his size, and I think a good level of athleticism, given sometimes international players don't always have that. So what did you think when you dove in?
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off there. I think that I like Noah Penda. And I think if he was there at 29, it would be a very safe selection for the Suns. I think I think this is a real thing. Part of the international play is I think it's a bit more fundamental, a little less AAU culture, a little bit more working on the footwork, things of that nature. I think you see that in some of the things that I've seen of Noah Penda. He's a little bit of a question mark. The thing that you had just mentioned before, the 3-point shooting. The shot doesn't look broken. It just doesn't really seem like he shot many of them. And he didn't. He shot 2 a game on 32% from the floor. But what I really like about him, big body defender. This is one of the things that I was looking at on The Ringer, where you try to find his wingspan. You're not really sure, but you can tell he takes up
space. We were talking about that pre-show, and I found The Athletic has something listed. I don't know where necessarily it came from, but they have it as 7 feet, which is good.
Yeah, well, I saw that as well, but you and I both talked about, well, if he didn't get measured officially, is that what his reps are saying? Is that what is actually correct? Is that what was listed in the French league? Sure. So that's what I like about him. But the one thing I could tell right away was I was kind of surprised when they mentioned his height at only being 6'8", because he fills out really well. And I think, like, just watching some of the stuff that I was seeing, I was like, damn, he's kind of a big guy. And I think that is something that will transit to the next level. Really long, good defender. The shot, I think, is not like as dire as Ryan Dunn's was last year. So although it's kind of hard to kind of evaluate these guys, I do think because of that French background, you can tell he's got a little bit of the fundamentals to him. I don't think he's crazy athletic, but plays around the rim pretty effectively, gets kind of the cheap turnovers and scores in the basket. That's kind of stuff that I like for the Suns. I like Noah Penda. It's just a little bit of a question mark because I didn't see him play during the college basketball season. It's just the homework that I've done now. What do you think?
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy. I would say that he, people have been really high on his passing. He averaged the 3 assists a game that I mentioned. A little bit high on the turnovers, which is to be expected. Again, his first season at age 19 in the top French league. But he's also really big already. And he weighs like 200, and he's listed at 225, but Sam Vecini's draft guide has, that it's a concern He's already 245 is what Sam reported in there that I was reading around on. And people have a little bit of nervousness about, almost getting too big.
All those
it's just
baguettes,
a lot of
man.
Yes, right? It's just like a lot of different things, kind of like a Mr. Potato Head of a player. Not in like the awkwardness of it or anything, but just like that shooting skill, that passing skill, that body shape, it's just kind of weird. It's not even the typical international player like, Zachary Ricochet went top last year. And obviously there's elements given that they have similar frames and everything, but this guy's, like I just said, heavier. I would say he seems to be more savvy with the ball in his hands already than Ricochet, but a worse shooter. I think to me, it obviously with a lot of these guys, it's going to come down to the jump shot. And you mentioned it's not as broken as Ryan Dunn. I would absolutely agree with that. But at the same time, this is a guy who shot could not make a free throw at various points.
That's a good thing to note. It's a really good thing to know. What do you have his free throw percentage there?
So age 16, his first pro season, his first full pro season at age 16, 56% from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Next season, only took 66 of them, but he was at 39%. And then you fast forward to now where he's in the top league and he's about to come out of the, obviously be in the draft, 67% on a lot of attempts. So that's worrying if you're trying to project the jump shot. So that kind of, I think, just brings us to the next guy because it's similar. It's another dude where you're banking on the jumper, and that's Adu Fiero from Arkansas. Went and, part of the inaugural Coach Cal experience over there. 6'6" junior wing, going to be 21 this season, similar to Penda. Elite block and steal rates, but it's interesting, like, again, reading Sam Vecini, who I think is one of the best that does this, his draft guide over there, he had this, he's like, if you really try to, paint the best picture of Fiero, you could compare him to the Thompson twins. But he's not nearly as athletic. No one is. Those are like the two biggest, best athletes in the whole entire NBA. He's not as big as those guys either. And he's not quite as good of a ball handler, even though he can handle it a little bit for being 6'6". So it's this weird thing where he went to a high caliber program, Ben. He's a guy that's been in the mix for a while in the recruiting and everything. And yet he's 21, and I still look at him and say he's raw.
Yeah.
How's that possible to be 21 and raw?
So I think what was also kind of interesting about him is he was one of the few guys that followed Calipari from Kentucky to Arkansas. I think at the 29 pick, though, the raw thing, I'm willing to kind of get past it a little bit because of the intangibles. Dude is a freak athlete, man. One of the things I really liked about Fiero was his first step. I think that is something that makes me fall in love with players all the time. How quickly can you get the ball and make the defender react secondarily to you moving? So I really like that from him. Slasher, good finisher of the rim. 63% of his field goals came at the rim.
And that's another thing that where his athleticism does show up to build on that. He shot, so you mentioned how many of his shots came at the rim. That's good. But also he was 61% from two overall. That's elite. And that was a huge jump from the previous couple seasons at Kentucky where he was more of a bit player. But even as a sometime starter as a sophomore with the Wildcats, he was 53%. So he improved a lot at that this year, even still being in the SEC. So that's a good thing. If you can get to the basket and finish, that's a building block for your offense, even if you can't shoot jumpers right now.
And I'm going to just piggyback off my point before. Like, I really like him at 29. I'm happy that you pointed him out to me. Granted, this is an hour of research on this guy, but
Flex said he thinks the Suns could have some eyes on him, which is part of why I brought him up, just for the record.
Do you want to know why? I think that they would have some eyes on him because for the same reason they had eyes on Ryan Dunn last year. This guy, I think, is going to be a really good defender in the NBA. And I think this is kind of the Suns' bread and butter guys, at least over the past couple of years. Tumani Kamara, Cam Johnson, Ryan Dunn, where Cam Johnson was obviously a really good shooter, but kind of the mold of that bigger wing. His ability to shoot the ball, if he could do that at a obviously much better clip, his shot honestly does look a little broken. It's kind of slow. I don't like it. He was
taking catch and shoot twos because of how awkward he was in terms of being off the ball as an offensive player. And even those with space and time to shoot, he was bricking. That's where we're at here. It's probably, to me, I feel worse about it than Dunn.
I won't go that far. Dunn's was pretty broken, but he shoots like his feet are almost this way. Like his form is not good. So that is something that has to get fixed. But what I would say, and it's the same thing I kind of said about Ryan Dunn last year, which is maybe why I'm falling in love with this guy a little bit more than maybe you are, is if this dude had a shot, I think he'd be a top 10 pick. I like his size. I like his defense. I like his athleticism.
Well, you could say that about like 40 guys.
No,
probably.
I like this guy better than some, but I guess you're right. Okay, sure. But I like him a little bit better than some of the other guys. I know he's a junior. I really don't like the shot. So
yeah,
I'll tell you this. I think he's in my top 3 of guys,
okay.
but he is at 29, of course. At 29, of course. But that is contingent on a couple of things. If the Suns already get a wing, he falls back. If the Suns get a big, he moves up. So obviously contingent on those things. I love his athleticism. I love the first step, man. I really worry about the shot. He's a rough shooter. But he's also, I mean, anyone that John Calipari likes, I mean, look at Kentucky. Kentucky brings out good guys all the time. I know it's Arkansas now, but if Calipari trusts him, why can't I a little bit? So that's kind of where I would go to.
The last thing I would say is just the size. And if this guy was 6'8", 6'9", I would be really in. And I know he probably wouldn't be as much of a ball handler if he was, so it's give and take, of course. But he is a little small to have the questions that he has.
7-foot wingspan.
Like, yes, but like, do you want him? Let's just like imagine around the league. I don't know, like, what's a good example? Siakam. Can't really defend Siakam, probably, right? Like maybe in spurts, but you wouldn't want that to be like he can't really be a 4. So then now he's the 3 on your team, and then the shooting becomes even more of a problem. That's all I'm talking about. So that's the one little concern. But I wouldn't hate if they ended up with him at all. And if they are looking at him, then that might be a decent likelihood. Let's get to who we want them to take. Our top 3s at the number 29 pick next. First, today's show brought to you by Open Phone. If you're a small business owner, you know every missed call can be money left on the table. The last time you had a missed call when you needed something, did you wait? Did you say, hey, let me just try them again? No, you moved on to the next company. And if you're a business owner, that means you lost the business. That's why you need Open Phone. It's the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. They let you manage calls and texts from your app on your phone, see what's coming in, see what needs to be done. They have a shared inbox that all of your staff can work from, and they have an AI agent option if you want an after-hours call receiver or just somebody to receive and send a voicemail or answer common questions, a FAQ, so to speak, all customized to what your business needs. Open Phone, offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with a different service, Open Phone will port those over at no extra charge. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right, Ben, let's keep it rolling. Our top 3 preferred picks, and then we'll get to trades at the end. Let's count down from 3 to 1, and I'll let you go first.
Curious. Oh, no. I want to hear you go first. I'm curious. I'm really curious to see where you have at 29. I haven't seen your list.
We agreed to do this, and it's almost felt impossible the minute I tried because it's so much dependent on the board. I don't know who's going to be available.
That's exactly.
So it's like,
okay.
Well, like Walter Clayton would maybe be interesting, I suppose, at 29. I don't love him, but if he falls there, I could see it. Or, like, if you look at some big boards of analysts on the internet, a lot of those guys don't really love Yegor Demin. If he falls to 29, I'd be willing to take a chance on him. But I don't know if that's actually going to happen. So I'm not going to like clown around and put him on my list because it would be based on a pretty big fall. It's tough. So where I came down is I had Kalkbrenner at 3 would be how I would, just because he's somebody that I do expect to be there and who I do I at least think he could be a rotation player for the Suns with a clear role and a high floor and a position and an archetype that they need. I don't love him. I don't think he's going to be somebody playing major minutes in a final series, but I can at least understand the idea. I think he'll have decent value. He could be tradable, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I went, even though he's not my favorite player, just because it felt like reasonable that we could actually see him get drafted there. Who did you have?
So originally here, or who I would have put here, contingent on the Miami Heat basically coming out and telling everyone that they're going to take him, is Walter Clayton Jr. But I'm not going to throw him there because, again, like you said, it's a little bit tough to put this here. And I don't want to put someone here that's not realistic. So with that being said, I do Fiero here. For a lot of the reasons that we just talked about before. Again, this is my third guy. So again, contingent on some things, but a lot of things I said before. I think he's a good finisher. 63 of those field goals came at the rim. Really good defender. I think he's going to make a lot of his living slashing to the basket. And I don't think he's super small, but again, this is the 29th overall pick. I'm looking for that wild card, almost energizer type bunny guy. And so for that reason, I'll go him. But because of the age, I took him down to 3. And again, he'd probably be my 4th if Walter Clayton Jr. didn't have a contract to go at 20.
So I'll go number 2. We just talked about the arrow, so I'll let that stand. He's not going to be on mine. I'm going to go with Nick Clifford, somebody that we haven't really talked about, but he was in that game where you and I basically did our little conversation about, draft fit and, fit versus BPA and all that stuff after the play-in games of the tournament where San Diego State played Colorado State and there was a blowout and we didn't have anything to talk about. But watching him then, and then he was in a game when we were talking about Derek Queen yesterday. I watched most of the game that Colorado State and Maryland played in the tournament, and Clifford jumped out to me then. And I would expect him to be in the mix here. He might go higher, but he definitely is reasonable to say could be at 29. He is an amazing off-ball defender. He got 3 deflections and steals in the first 10 minutes of the game on entry passes and drop passes into the paint where he just rotated over before anyone else realized he was doing it. He's older for sure. He's a 5th-year player, but he's shot it every single season basically in college except for one, including the past 2 seasons on higher volume. He's a decent free throw shooter the past couple seasons, and he basically became a do-it-all guy for that team as a super senior this year, putting up 19, 10, and 4 with a steal and a block as well. Just kind of one of those guys who should dominate in college and then does. So, not any kind of insane physical freak or anything like that. Not an elite, maybe elite at any one skill. But I'd be willing to bet on a do-it-all, high IQ, difference-making, and he's big. He is 6'5" with a good wingspan type of player to just be a rotation dude in the league. So partially just wanted to shout out somebody we haven't talked about, but I also do like him.
That's a good pool, man. I'm going to go Drake Powell here. We've talked about him. He was our selection in the draft. I won't go too deep on him because we have talked about him before. This guy
is my number 1. I'll just reveal that.
Okay. Well, then I'll do the same thing.
We have talked about him.
We have talked about him. One thing I like about him, 6'6", 7-foot wingspan of a player. Defensively, I'm going to be honest with you. I am not so sure this guy's going to fall to 29 because he's so young and has the tools to be a pretty good player. That's someone I think you can sculpt and you're not really worrying about Fiero as that is what he is. I like Drake Powell because of the defensive efforts. And then, of course, the biggest thing, the fact that he can shoot the 3 ball at least decently. And that would be 37% on 2 a game. So I'll let you take it from here. But I like Drake Powell here at 2. And that is contingent on him being 1. But I think the Suns are going to go wing with their first pick. So teaser, I got a big in with my first pick.
So my question on Powell, low key, is how
why is he
different?
Falling?
No, okay. I think I get it. He also can be in the mix of kind of maybe not as aggressive or as overwhelming offensively as maybe he could be.
Okay. It's also 19, 18, but I know that's not you saying it.
Yeah. I guess just what's the difference between him and Carter Bryant? Why is that gap so big? It's height, right? Off the bat, you have to just say he is 6'5", Carter Bryant is 6'8". That's different. But other than that, I don't really get why I'm looking at the Ringers draft board and He's 10th. Bryant is 10th, and and Powell, I should say, is 30th. I don't know what it is everywhere else, but I don't get that.
Oh, I was going to let you continue to go through with that. Because we just talked about Carter Bryant last show.
I'm throwing it at you. Why are they so far apart for people?
Well, I think
it comes similar to me.
Well, to me, I'm trusting the experts, but I've had some of the same questions about Carter Bryant, mainly when you and I first did a show about Carter Bryant. I was like, can someone explain to me why this guy's going up so high? But I've talked to some people who are close to the U of A basketball situation. They talk really highly of him, and I see people consistently rank this guy really high. So part of me is group thinking of like, okay, there's got to be some magical quality that I'm missing, but I agree with you, man. I don't know why Carter Bryant is so high. It's why I knocked him down again this morning on my board because of this, or my son's board, because of the same things you just said.
Well, I say that because of maybe how much I maybe like Carter Bryant a little less, but also because I think that Powell is also a lot better than maybe people think from what I've seen. So I think he'd be a really nice option, especially if maybe they do go big at 10. Maybe they get Malawach or they get Sorber or they go Queen, who they seem to have a crush on here, and then Powell could be a fallback to be that other type of wing. But who's your number one if you had a center?
Yeah, you're gonna get really upset with me for this, but because I think and you said this to me last night, which is so funny. You're like, now you like this guy. It's because how I believe the board is falling to me. I think the Suns are going to go wing, and I cannot leave this draft without some semblance of a spacing big. Give me Maxime Raynaud. The 3-point shooting is there. I think he shot, if I'm not mistaken, I have it right here. But 35% from three. He was the leading scorer over with Stanford. I like his ability to potentially be a little microwave scorer off the bench, and the Suns need to be able to play differently. I want them to be able to bring Maxime Raynaud off the bench and be able to space it out a little bit. Let Jalen Green run with those guys, and Jalen Green's able to get to the basket a little bit better. So it's not so much about me loving the player like a ton. It's at that point at 29, I'm going off of need. At 10, I'm going off best player available. But at 29, because everyone gets kind of bunched up together, I'm going off of need. And I don't hate him, but his ability to score, 3-point shooting, the defense is probably going to be really bad at the next level, but I'm projecting him as a backup big. I think then the Suns kind of fill some holes that they need to do because they got so many on this sinking ship.
Yeah.
I'm shocked you didn't have him on your board. I thought you liked him a lot.
I just think the mobility and the defense could just be really exposed. You know,
I don't like the ball handling either, to be honest with you.
He's a center.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, for a guy, he does shoot the 3 ball, so I expect him to get the ball at the top every now and then, but it's mostly going to be catch and shoot. That's where a lot of his threes came from. It's a good point.
Yeah, he's not going to be raining pull-up threes, otherwise he'd be the number 1 overall pick.
He's not going to be Giannis, is what you're saying? I guess Giannis's bag is not great either.
I think that, to me, but look, like that takes time. I just think, like, to me, it's just the combination of, if you're older, which he is, I want to have less questions about you in terms of like what you're going to do in the league. And he's 22, and I still think, like, can he even cut it on defense? So I don't think, like, if they ended up with him, I wouldn't kill it, and I don't think it's like he should go in the 50s or anything. But I just think, again, if we're just talking about the Suns, I think Kalkbrenner can come in and just be something for them. I really just think, like, I'm significantly favoring, not surefire, nobody's surefire, but
you're a higher floor. I get that.
I just can't risk a flame out. I really is where I'm at.
At 29, you can't. Now that you have 10 at 29, you can't take a risk.
Okay, so I can take a risk. Every player's a risk at 29. But I can take a risk if, and I guess, like, then the other step of that just becomes, okay, taking a risk. I would almost always rather take a risk on somebody who can't shoot but is athletic and physical versus the opposite, especially with how the modern NBA is. So, like Maxime Raynaud, it's like, that's like a Ryan Anderson type player potentially, and does that guy exist anymore? We talked about that when we discussed him. Like Valanciunas, is that the comp? Like, there's just not a lot of players that I can picture who do what he does. And you could say the same thing about Kalkbrenner. I just think Kalkbrenner's a cut above in terms of what he's already done as a basketball player, and I just lean that way.
Yeah, so because I mentioned this a few times, what do you think the Suns, I know this is probably should have been asked in the last episode, but whatever, people should watch both. What do you think the Suns go at 10 in terms of just position, like wing, big? I don't think you're going to go guard. And then at the 29 spot, does that kind of affect, like, would you take two wings?
Yeah, I think that I don't think the Suns have ever operated with HBA or even before that of like locking into somebody. So okay. I think that they'll be nimble and play the draft. I think we talked about trading down from 10 as a possibility in the last episode. I think that's an option. I don't think that they're locked in. But yeah, I don't think they'll walk away and take two wings or two centers. So yeah, probably just
that's
flip.
what.
And maybe there's guard options. I mean, I don't know. We didn't talk about some of the guards they could take, but that's still a possibility.
Because we're trying.
They do need a point guard.
Yeah, because we're trying to stop them from doing that. Because we're trying to stop all. I know what you're saying in terms of point guards. I totally
get it. They need a playmaker.
Yes. What I would say is I think you and I are trying to stop them from taking any guards because that might that might move them away from taking Chase Richardson.
Yeah, well, yeah. Notice how he didn't come up in this little
until right now
of episodes. All right, last but not least, some trade options. Could Grayson Allen or Royce O'Neal be on the move on draft night? Next. First, today's show is brought to you by the wonderful folks at Wayfair. They are helping you make your outdoor space into a personal oasis this summer. If you're wanting to update your patio, Wayfair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours. Comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. Wayfair has everything you need to level up your outdoor space. Conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, and even those perfect string lights to set the vibe. It's like giving your backyard the resort feel without the resort price tag. We definitely need some furniture out on our new patio. Could use some shade, honestly. Maybe, what else? What could we use? Like some decorations, like lights. I guess it's lights. Don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. All right, Ben, let's close it out. This double edition of Locked On Suns heading into draft night.
This was fun.
Yeah. So, trade options. Let me just get this out of the way because it doesn't matter, and it's not worth a whole segment, and we shouldn't have talked about it, but I do want to say it. They have 52 and 59 now. They're going to trade up and take somebody there. I just want to say that. Because they have a lot of seconds, and they did it last year with Oso, and I think it's smart. A smart way to do business. I think that they probably have somebody in the second round whose name we just aren't thinking of right now, and they'll do that. So I just wanted to say that. But as far as 29, I would be thinking a lot about, can this be, if they are as aggressive as Matt Ishbia has led me to believe that they want to be, I do think attaching this pick to Grayson or Royce O'Neal to get a player is not out of the realm of possibility.
To get a player or to get a pick?
To get a player.
So you're saying
get somebody potentially better or more valuable to the Suns than those guys, you attach the pick that they have to get a player.
Okay.
You can't really get a pick back if you're attaching it to Grayson Allen, because then the team doesn't send you a player. The trade doesn't really usually work. So
Sure. I guess I was kind of surprised that you went down that avenue. Yeah.
Well, what do you think? What could they trade if it's just the pick? Trade up from 29? I mean, of course, that's a possibility.
I don't think they're trading up. I don't know, because you talk about the Asa Newell stuff. I was thinking about more packaging those 2 second-round picks that we have. And I totally believe with you that the Suns are not making 4 selections in this draft, especially 2 in the second round. Feels a little much. I would think the Suns might package those 2 second-round picks and the 29th overall pick to move up 1 or 2 or 3 spots for a guy like Asa Newell or someone else. And then to speak on the Grayson Allen stuff and the Royce O'Neal stuff, I'd be totally for it. I think it's possible. You have I maybe not so much Royce O'Neal, because I do want a little bit more of that veteran presence there. I think he's an unspoken leader of that team, and him and Dylan Brooks, I think, could help lead that wing army a little bit and maybe take a guy like Drake Powell or Carter Bryant under the wing. But I get it. You move on from Royce O'Neal. I'm not freaking out. Grayson Allen, and I mean this in like a nice way because I don't hate Grayson Allen, but like he's got to go. He doesn't fit on this team anymore. So I would be curious what they would get back because, Tingus Pingus is gone and you're trying to look maybe Robert Williams. I mean, DA.
Sure. I think that
DA.
Well, yeah, we got to think about money. Porzingis wasn't going to work.
Exactly.
Ayton doesn't work. But yeah, like a lot of the players we've been talking about for like 2 years with that contract. Honestly, Time
is it
Lord,
that valuable?
Goga Batadze. No, I don't think it is. That's why you have to attach a pick to it.
That's why I would agree with you too, man. People just kind of throw out that the Suns could trade Grayson Allen, and I'm like, that contract's not super friendly. It's not like a horrendously bad deal like Bradley Beal's is, but it's not a great deal.
Probably
and so,
a slight negative, I would say. He has 17, 35, 54, 55 million left on his guaranteed money. That's a lot for a player who's 30 and just had a down season, the Suns signed him at the peak of his value because Frank Vogel brought out the best in him. And now they're potentially could be looking to flip him at the
how many picks
of his value potentially.
How many picks do you think it would take? 2 to get off of Allen and to get a player that you like, or just 1?
I'm not doing it if it's 2 first-round picks. That's
no,
crazy.
No. Second round picks.
Oh,
I wouldn't attach a first round pick to Grayson Allen unless the player was
that's
really.
what I was just talking about doing. So I thought that's what we were still talking about.
I thought you
pick in this draft. That's what I'm talking about.
I thought you were talking about the second round picks because you were talking before the second round picks. But either way, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't move him for a first round pick unless it was a really effective player. Like I wouldn't do it for Robert Williams because of the injury concern. So regardless if it's second or first round picks, it's got to be someone that the Suns really value at it as a big. And I just don't know if that player is out there. I'm not in the business of getting rid of players because their contract is bad and attaching first round picks to it. And I'm not attacking you on that. It's just my point in saying that. So it really doesn't change for me.
The Suns have the 5 seconds that they just got from this trade.
Yeah.
And then 52 this year and 1 future second from Denver next year. It's the less favorable of Denver and Golden State. So let's say that's in the 50s.
Sure.
I don't know if any of those picks are valuable enough to make any kind of trade really help you. You know what I mean? Maybe the Beal thing, like that, I just don't even know what that's going to look like. So I wouldn't say no to that. But you talk about like what do you attach to Grayson Allen to get to grease the wheels of a trade? 52 and 59. I don't. What other GM is going to go? Oh, we get 52 and 59. We'll
currency.
Take Grayson.
Well, it is currency in the NBA, and potentially you find someone trying to shed. I guess that doesn't make sense either because Grayson makes a lot of money. I was going to say maybe they're trying to shed money, but I still think second round picks are valuable
can't
at
really
the trade
do those
deadline.
trades because they can't take.
No,
them
exactly.
Back,
so hey, well, does the Drew Holiday trade? Drew was not great in the playoffs. That was pretty well documented. Maybe starting to take a step back. They still got Anthony Simons for him. Maybe Grayson Allen, who is not seen as old and can defend fine and can shoot the 3 ball, I would say pretty well, even if last year wasn't great for him.
Grayson's an elite shooter and probably at a playoff caliber level, a poor defender would be how I would put it.
And that kind of throws my point to the side because I would say he's a average defender in a playoff scenario. I think with the Suns, he got exposed a little bit because he was asked to guard Anthony Edwards or Naz Reid at times because they didn't have those guys. I think if he was sized
of course
up,
he's overmatched doing that. And look, he can play a role on a good team. That's why I brought it up. I wasn't thinking of it as the Suns trying desperately to sell off and dump Grayson Allen and lose the trade. I'm trying to just say what player. I don't think it's that dire. I think that they could find a deal where maybe they take a slight hit because they would maybe be giving up the pick. But I look at we could just go through it, right? Like, Devin depending on what happens with Dallas. If they were to potentially trade Klay Thompson at some point, he could be a replacement there if they continue to try to win games. I think the Spurs could use a shooter because they're pretty thin on that right now, and they're trying to take a step forward and win games. I think the Nuggets would take Grayson Allen. And I'm just saying all this in a vacuum, you know what I mean? The Warriors, he could fill that Buddy Hield type role if there was a trade to be made there. Honestly, the Heat, I think he could fit how they play basketball pretty well. The Knicks could definitely use another shooter if they could make a trade work. The Pistons, depending on if they keep Hardaway and things like that. Maybe the Sixers, if they want, he's a little bigger than their cluster of guards. I think the Bucks would take him back if there's any way that could potentially happen. So I think there's a lot of teams that would use him. It's just then you have to get into the specifics of you're probably trying to look for a similar contract where the other team doesn't feel awesome about. Like, for instance, I don't even know if you would have to send a first, but maybe to your point, a second. Portis, Milwaukee.
No, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, because he fits the culture here. Because he fits the culture here. Tough guy, literally punched a dude in the face one time over in Chicago a while ago. Man, that is like a I think something that I would pretty perfectly do. Whatever, similar contracts, only going to cost me a second round pick, and Grayson fits Milwaukee better, and Bobby would help the Suns become the next team that they want to be better. So you know what? Yes, I think we found some middle ground there because the first round picks that you were alluding to before that I do think is a little much. Second round picks, yes, I would do that.
Yeah, a first round pick, I would want a player better than Portis. A first round pick is like you find a team that is interested in actually having Grayson on their team, but I guess in a vacuum, this trade doesn't work. I just want to be clear, but like Grayson and a first for Michael Porter Jr. next year, not this year, but next year when they have actually similar money left on their contracts, but Porter's contract is shorter, and maybe the Nuggets want like something like that would maybe be when I would do it. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy. I agree with you. I wouldn't hate keeping Royce around, but
yeah, I kind of want to keep Royce. I
just think there's not a lot of sense in keeping so much money on the books like that either, especially now that they have the Dylan Brooks contract and the Jalen Green contract. That's a lot of long-term money now, on top of whatever's going on with Beal. So I think they'll look into it. They also have the other two Cavs Utah picks in 2027 and 2029 that are first.
I don't want to move those. I want to have swings at the bat. I'm not in the business, and I know you are, probably a little bit in this boat, maybe half in, half out. Our picks, it's the same thing with Beal. We've dug ourselves a deep enough hole. We're not trying to win a championship right now. Even if, again, like you had said, the money doesn't work, but like DeAndre Ayton, let's bring him here. No, because I'd have to give up a pick for him, and DeAndre Ayton doesn't fit the next great Phoenix Suns team or whoever. Robert Williams. It doesn't matter. That's what I'm looking for. Could I get maybe an Isaiah Stewart? I don't know, maybe, but I'm not in the business of giving up those picks,
money-wise.
Yeah.
So all of it is up in the air. I don't think I would want the Suns to make a trade like that unless it blew me away, but I think we just know how Matt HP operates, so that's why I wanted to bring it up. That'll wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe. We'll be back for you as soon as the draft is over. And I guess on Thursday to close out the week with Zach Cohen from Real GM, Suns fan, draft analyst. That'll close out the week, but we got a draft to get to in the meantime. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you then.